and pithy to say at the beginning. So,
Well, you know I do.
but he does. He always does.
All right, stand by. Here we go.
I should have worn a Hawaiian shirt.
Here we go.
Good afternoon. I'm Judy Maggio with KLRU's Decibel.
And I'm Ben Philpott from KUT News here in town. Sorry, I'm trying to upload this to Facebook here.
Yeah,
and
well,
post it.
but you got to talk to us
I'm going
first.
to talk to you first. How's everything going?
Can't you multitask?
Man, it's vacation mode for me.
I
don't
know. He's going to
Yeah.
be leaving us for the entire month of July.
I'll be back for maybe the last month. Or
Okay.
last
week,
yeah.
the last Tuesday? Okay. Well, if you've never tuned in, this is Capital Coffee Talk. Ben and I cover all kinds of state and city issues that hopefully you care about and want to know more about. And I want to start with a Supreme Court ruling that came down this week on redistricting,
Yep.
which sounds kind of ominous. And it actually will have some pretty far-reaching effects.
Well, I think the far-reaching effect is that groups that were opposed to the plan that was drawn in Texas, and should back up just real quickly. So there were two redistricting cases before the Supreme Court. One out of, I believe it was
North Carolina?
I thought that was a state court. I thought Wisconsin had one.
Yes,
What was it?
Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Okay.
Wisconsin, and then this Texas one. The courts ruled essentially with the Supreme Court essentially ruled with the states on both of them. And the thing that Ashley Lopez has been doing some reporting for KUT.
She's done a
on this,
great
and
job.
The thing that she heard from lawyers who were on the side of trying to change the districts said over and over again that this was kind of the first example of how strong or weak the Voting Rights Act was now that
They took out Section 5.
So
Now you have to explain Section 5.
this will be very quick. The Section 5 said if you are a state that has a history of not doing the right thing when it comes to voting rights,
And giving people of all colors the
right, yeah,
equal
of
access
blocking
to, yeah,
people
yeah.
Of minorities, of people of color from being able to vote, then anytime you change your voting laws, be it
redrawing a district.
redrawing a district or changing the ID, the kind of ID you need to be able to vote, you have to get what's called pre-clearance. The courts have to say, we have reviewed what you want to change and we're willing to let it go forward, or we're not willing to let it go forward. So that was Section 5. Section 5 got taken out about 5 years ago.
5 years ago, the Supreme Court kicked it out
from a
with Win
case
Roberts.
out of Alabama. And the courts at the time said that Section 3 provided enough protection to allow Section 5 to go away. Section 3, though, instead of saying, as in Section 5, you have to give it to us first and we get to decide, the judges, that is, the courts, Section 3 says you can put stuff into place and then it is then upon someone suing to say this is discriminatory and it should be taken
So
out.
it's basically, the bottom line is the plaintiffs really have to
Yes.
prove.
It's a higher bar.
Higher bar to reach that you have to prove it's discriminatory.
It's a higher bar, and while that bar is trying to be met, the law is in place. So if it were truly a discriminatory law, it could be keeping people from voting for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, even if the courts then eventually agree with whoever's brought the lawsuit and throw the law out. But you still have that year's gap of people being discriminated against.
So when we look at what this means as far as where the congressional lines are drawn in Texas, there was only one that they thought was indeed discriminatory in Fort Worth area?
Yes, it's actually a district drawn for a Democrat. It's a majority-minority district, I believe, and they're saying that one's going to have to be redrawn. Now, of course, you can't just redraw one, so the districts that are touching that district
Adjacent districts have
will
to be
also, so probably this was a
redrawn.
state house district in Tarrant County. My guess is that all of Tarrant County will have to be redrawn, or a good chunk of Tarrant County will have to be redrawn.
But Lloyd Doggett's district was also one that was
Yep.
They were complaining about, but that one they said was okay.
That one's fine.
Okay. So.
And one, I guess there was a Corpus Christi one as well that was being looked at. That one, according to the Supreme Court, is fine as well.
So while we're talking about state politics, I know there was a brand new poll out by UT and the Texas Tribune this week about where certain races are, and the top of the ticket will be the race for U.S. Senate. What did it say about the Beto O'Rourke-Ted Cruz race?
That Congressman O'Rourke is 5 points behind Senator Ted Cruz.
So he's inched up. I mean,
It's-
that one's saying it's been back and forth.
It's a little bit back and forth. It has I believe most of the recent polls have all shown basically single digits, with one then kind of sandwiched in the middle that bumped it back out to about 10 or 11 points. But all the others have shown it being closer. Historically, if the election actually were happening right now, this would be by far the closest statewide race that we've had since, I guess,
in a long time.
since Ann Richards losing
Yeah,
to
right, since
George Bush.
Since Republicans took over
Right.
every statewide office.
So, well, I guess I should backtrack. There was I forget exactly how close it was, but the race for
Attorney General? No?
no Lieutenant Governor against
This is going to show.
Dewhurst
This is middle-aged people's
and
memory
John
game.
Sharp.
Yeah, John Sharp. You remember? That's what I was trying to think of. John
That
Sharp.
was
You thought of it.
2002.
Okay.
That race was, but I forget if it was. I believe it was in single digits. All the others.
There was another close race between Kirk Watson on the Democratic side and Greg Abbott for state attorney
That was
general.
also 2002. I didn't remember that one as
That
being
was.
close.
I thought
but
that
don't
was
know.
pretty close,
I
but
don't remember.
okay, all right.
I remember names. I was told there would be no math.
There's no math involved in this. Anyway, so
anyways,
poll results.
So it's close. It appears right now it's close. Now we've had Jim Henson, who's the UT pollster that oversees a lot of these polls that the Texas Tribune also puts out, or that they put out through the Texas Tribune. And we've had him on lots of times, and I spoke with him yesterday about this. All the statewide races are looking close right now. From the Attorney General race, where it's 1%. Is the difference between the Republican and Democrat,
Right.
to Lieutenant Governor, which is 6 points, 6-point spread, Senate race 5-point spread, and then Governor Greg Abbott. And
That's a little bit. That's
that's
double
12
digits.
points.
Yeah.
it's 12 points, but the last gubernatorial election, it was 20 points that Wendy Davis lost by 20. But he says that, one thing you have to think about is that it is early. It is just June for these races and for these polls. When you look at the percentage of people that have not made their mind up yet, there's
It was huge.
a whole lot of wiggle room. That's right.
Yeah.
It's like 20%, 30% have not made up their mind yet. I think that Attorney General's race, which again is, according to the poll, just a 1% spread, it was like 33% of the people, 34% had not decided who they were voting for yet.
Why do you think the Attorney General's race? I mean, I know that Beto O'Rourke has made a huge push. He's had a lot of big donors. He's visited every county in the state, and he has a certain charisma. But why do you think the Attorney General's race is close? Is it because Paxton's had some legal issues?
Well, so based on, again, this is what Jim Henson discussed with me yesterday, the Democrats at the moment are more solidified behind their candidates, whereas Republicans are a little more, at the moment, fluid. Now, could they come home in 6 months and or 5 months and say, oh yeah, I'm going to vote for the Republican that's on the ballot? Absolutely. It's happened in previous races. But the number of Democrats who are willing to say right now, yes, I'm voting for the Democrat, just is higher than support among Republicans. So you had, and it looks like about 32% is kind of the floor, or maybe even, I guess you could say, the ceiling for Democrats, because you had a couple of races where it was 32%, 31% saying, yes, I'd vote for that Democrat. And then the fluctuation was on the Republican side. The Attorney General's race, only 32% of Republicans said they were ready to vote for Attorney General Paxton. U.S. Senate race, a little bit higher amount said they were willing to vote. So
November's a long way
November's
off.
a long way away, and he pointed out, and I know it's a lot of polling stuff, and he pointed out that at this point in the governor's race in 2014 against Greg Abbott and Wendy Davis was down by 12 points, about 12 points.
Okay, and that's what
And
it
she
is for
ended
the
up losing
governor's
by
race.
20.
Yeah.
And now it's, again, the governor's race is about 12 points.
Okay.
Could the governor end up, could it be closer, or could the governor end
Yeah,
up winning by 20?
We also live in more unpredictable political times, in my mind, than we did.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely more, as much
4
as
years ago.
as much as there was a belief among Democrats 4 years ago that Wendy Davis was somehow going to solidify the base and maybe reach out to people that were concerned with conservative overreach on the Republican side, that never materialized. This is another election where that certainly appears to be a possibility. That it's definitely solidifying the base. Is it enough to reach out to people who maybe have traditionally voted for Republicans.
Or don't normally vote at
Or
all.
don't normally vote at all, but are concerned about the direction that the Republican Party is taking in the state and nationally.
Yeah, especially with the immigration
Right.
issues happening right now. I want to talk about the Democratic Convention because we spent a lot of time talking about the Republican Convention last time around. Now the Democratic Convention just ended. First of all, why, as a political reporter, I'd love your observation of this, why do the Republicans meet in a predominantly Democratic city and the Democrats meet in a predominantly Republican city? They think they're going to be able to turn people's tide?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that someone will say, "Oh, it's because we got a good deal on the convention space," but definitely when you look at where national conventions get placed, the national parties tend to absolutely move them around to states that are purple. They've had them in Ohio.
Right.
They've had them in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I believe the first time that Obama ran for president, it was in Colorado, which was a purple state at the time, or even a Republican state that they were hoping to push more
Had in
purple
Denver,
and become a Democratic state. So you kind of could see, you kind of see the same
So
things
this
here.
is the state version of that national trend.
Tarrant County, Fort Worth, is the last large city in Texas that doesn't vote more Democrats than Republicans. And so, of course, Democrats would love to flip that county to blue. San Antonio has long been considered a place that is more friendly to Democrats, but trending over the last few elections, you've seen some more moderate, middle of the road, or even conservative support for things like the mayor's race, or even a couple of state house races that ended up flipping and going to Republicans. So that again is a place where Republicans are going in and saying, sure, it's a more highly Hispanic area, but we believe we share, conservative values with those Hispanics, especially the more religious Hispanics. So.
Yeah, that's a great explanation.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I figured. I've seen that happen at the national level, but I hadn't really covered the state conventions. All right, so
And I think we talked about this before. Like, people always say, "Oh, so when is Texas going to turn purple? When is Texas going to turn purple?" When Republicans or Democrats have a national convention in Texas, it's teetering on the edge.
Okay, that's a great point.
Either Republicans will have it here in hopes of stopping and keeping it red,
Right.
or Democrats will have it here because they feel like it's on the
They think
brink.
it's purple
Yeah.
turning blue.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the platform for the Democrats, because it was, 360 degrees from what the Republicans put in their platform.
Yeah.
The legalization of marijuana.
Well, although the Republicans are they lean a little bit that way.
Okay.
They did have things to decriminalize marijuana,
But not legalize.
Not legalize, decriminalize, and expand, though, medicinal use.
Okay.
Which,
So Republicans are not against marijuana, per se.
That's right.
Okay.
It's
as a whole.
that's
Okay.
the world we live in. Crazy, right? Anyway, go ahead.
Some of the other. What else is in
I
the
definitely
platform
disagree
of
with
note?
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, kind of like with the Republican platform, this is the party's greatest hits. These are issues that they feel like can help them on the campaign trail. Things like immigration or expanding women's health care choices, or providing more money to public education. It was you had the Republican platform that was talking about school choice and school vouchers, and then the Democrat one saying, no, let's push more
Boost
money back
public
into
schools, yeah.
So
Which is the fight at the legislature often.
yes,
Every
although that's
2 years.
a more bipartisan fight. I mean,
yeah.
we've seen the Republican-controlled Texas House take a vote with the vast majority of people saying, in the Texas House, we don't want a single voucher anywhere in the state budget.
Well, that's when Joe Strauss was
That was when Joe Strauss.
yeah. Okay.
Although they also did it when Tom Craddock was Speaker of the House.
Okay, now we're getting into the weeds.
Now
What
we
else?
are getting into the weeds.
What
Sorry
else?
about that.
What other platform issues were big?
Really, most of it was, a lot of the convention was focused on immigration. Obviously, they were having their convention the same weekend that really a lot of the national coverage was blowing up on immigration. Actually, it was kind of right at the not the tail end of the coverage, but the tail end of the president finally getting
We
around
find the
to
executive
sign-
and a lot of the Democratic senators and congressmen were heading down to take a
Yeah,
look.
I mean, you had...
And Republicans too.
Yes, you had, but in regard to this convention, you had a lot of elected officials a lot of elected Democrats who were kind of in and out of the convention because they were also spending time down at the border, like Congressman O'Rourke. So that was a really big thing. And Ashley Lopez, again, who was there, did a story this week on, so where, if immigration is such a large issue, where do Democrats come down on this? What would they like to see be the policy moving forward? And she said that for most of the people she talked with, they really didn't know exactly what they wanted to see. They knew they didn't want to see what the Republicans were doing.
They didn't want family separation.
They didn't want family separation, but so what does that mean then? What needs to get put in place to keep families from being separated? There's talk of, pathway to citizenship, but still not
There's not a formed policy.
Yeah,
and I think they're
solidifying
waiting
around a
also
single
to see what happens on Capitol Hill before they speak out too much, because these bills are obviously up for a vote on Capitol Hill, the immigration reform bills.
Right. And we'll see if anything happens there, or if this is a 2019 vote that maybe gets happening. If the makeup of Congress changes much, is this something that Democrats will take a run at again in 2019?
Well, I want to segue to paid sick leave, because this is one of the things that the Democrats supported in their platform in Fort Worth, mandatory paid sick leave for Texas workers. The only city in the country that's passed that so far is Austin.
Yep.
We had Greg Casar, the council member, here yesterday, and I want to play a little bit of that, but let me tell you what the argument is on the other side. The Texas Public Policy Foundation is among the large groups of business owners and business people who are opposing this, and they basically say that it violates the Texas Minimum Wage Act, and it's my understanding from reading just a few minutes ago when I was looking at the latest, it's in court right now, that they're trying to get an injunction. Basically, they're trying to put it on hold.
Right. They don't want it to go into effect.
They don't want it to go into effect. So here is what Greg Casar said, and he is one of the champions of this particular ordinance.
The city's side is that, the 9 members of our 11-member council voted for this policy. It's totally legal under state law. There is no law that says we can't have a paid sick days ordinance, and that there's a real public health and safety reason that when people have to choose between taking care of a sick child or paying the rent, and that they have to skip out on work to take care of their kid, or they send their kid to school sick, there's a real governmental interest in guaranteeing paid sick days. This law exists all over the country, and now it's being considered in Dallas and San Antonio, so it'll cover maybe 4 million Texans by the end of the year.
So I asked him, after we talked about this issue, if Dallas and San Antonio indeed did enact this, would that give them more teeth at the legislature? Because as someone who covers the Capitol, don't you think this is one of those things that the state legislature is going to tackle? I know that Paul Workman is dead set against it.
Yeah, the state legislature, I think, would argue what the Texas Public Policy Foundation is arguing, which is there's already a state law that, again, according to their argument, there's already a state law that bars cities from doing this. So I don't know if, I'm sure that especially if the court case comes back saying that it's perfectly legal, there will be I would assume there will absolutely be a movement among some Republicans, including Paul Workman here in Austin, to if he's reelected in the fall, to just pass a very explicit law saying no cities are allowed to do a mandatory paid sick leave program. Austin has really come in the crosshairs from the legislature. I guess it's always been that way. But you had the Uber issue. You had
sanctuary cities.
You've got the bag ban.
Right, and that's the other Supreme Court ruling I want to talk to you about, because that came down Monday.
Yep.
Or was it Monday?
It was
Friday.
It was last
Friday.
week.
Yeah, it was last week, Friday. Yeah.
We're professionals. It was Friday. And that one, that was ruling very specifically against the bag ban in Laredo. So the city,
which actually passed before Austin's.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You had some. I think there were some along the Gulf Coast that also passed before Austin's, because there it was an issue of
Brownsville, I think. Yeah, because it was ending up in the ocean. All these plastic bags.
It was ending up in the ocean. It was also ending up in. I guess this was also the case for Laredo. It was ending up in their sewer system and was just destroying their sewer systems. So they were like, look, this is kind of the city's argument. This is kind of a menace. So we need to rein it in. I actually, just before we went on the air, talked to Audrey McGlinchey from KUT, who's been covering that and all of our city issues, really. And she said that so far, all we have from the city of Austin is we're looking into it. I made a call last Friday to HEB and said, so
What does this mean to you?
What does this mean to you? Because just because the bag ban is lifted, it does not, I don't think it forces the
Grocery stores to start allowing
right.
them again.
Because you consider stores like Central Market and Whole Foods, they were already doing paper bags. And then if you had like, meat or something and you wanted to put it in a plastic bag, they had it for that. But their main source of your grocery bag was a old-fashioned paper bag. So HEB could decide to just stick with the plastic bags that they have for people to purchase, and then have the regular bags if somebody really wants to make a stink and get the regular.
Could it be kind of a know your audience thing as far as marketing goes? Would the grocery stores, I'm just thinking out loud, but could the grocery store say, okay, in Austin we know people are more environmentally conscious as a whole, so we won't do plastic bags here, but in Fort Worth,
right? Well, or I mean, Dripping Springs, the nice HEB that they have out there, they use plastic bags. So I don't know.
It's a possibility they could do it that way.
I certainly think right now, again, because they have, if this court ruling does absolutely cover any bag ban in the state, which again, the last word we got from the city of Austin is they were looking into it. But if it does in fact cover every bag ban in the state, it's now up to the corporations. Do they want to switch back, or do they feel like the transition they've made here in Austin is complete and they'll just keep on keeping on with what they're doing here? I think it is. It's kind of a know your audience and know whether or not it's something you care to go back on. It's almost a, do you feel like this is something that momentum will reverse it back in another 10 years? So if so, then I guess maybe you're weighing corporate profits and, well, could we save another few dollars here over the next 8 years before we're forced to go back to the non-reusable
Well, plastic
bags?
straws will be next.
That's right, plastic. I would guess the city of Austin will pass that pretty soon and then get sued.
Stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
We're going to miss you. You're going to be gone the month of July.
I am gone the month of July.
Do you want to tell people where you're going?
Well, I'm taking a few days off.
You're celebrating your anniversary and going on a nice trip.
My wife and I have been married for 20 years, and we're going to go on a little trip, and that'll be fun.
It will be fun. You can tell us. We'll show vacation pictures when you get back.
That's right. My kids will be fine. They'll hang out at house, and I think grandparents will come in. But
yeah, I think maybe the grandparents will be there.
I'm more worried about my poor old dog. We'll see what happens to him while we're gone.
Oh, I can go help with your dog.
You want to come give him shots twice a day?
Sure, I've done that before. I've given cat shots. Surely dogs are easier than cats. Well, have fun on your trip.
Yeah, it should be fun. Good luck with everything here.
There'll be lots to talk about, especially we're focusing on immigration and all the facets of it and the many changing phases of it for the next month. So we'll probably talk about that when you get back.
Dear goodness.
And there's no telling what's going to happen by the time you get back.
That's right.
The whole world may have changed.
That's right.
But we'll keep you posted on Capital Coffee Talk. And we'll still be here every Tuesday. I will, at least, at 12:30. We have a whole great list of guests coming on to talk about various issues. So make it a great day. Try to stay cool out there. Thanks so much for spending time with us this afternoon.